Emily, why do we have to hike up all these stairs?
Jeff, Tony is our special guest for the next episode of ABC Musical Madness, and I wanted to give him a little time to absorb the movie before we do the review.
Okay, what's the movie? Buongiorno, I'm Geppetto. I'm a toy maker or whatever. Come on in, Geppetto's toy shop is now open. Hey, wow, looky here. I make toys. Look at all the toys. I'm Geppetto or some shit. I love making children happy. Hey, everything here is satisfaction guaranteed. Oh, Gerald, you okay, buddy?
Yeah, I'm fine. Tony watched Geppetto starring Drew Carey today and, well, I think it broke him a little. I'm playing Pinocchio.
And who are you supposed to be?
Jeffrey, I'm the Blue Fairy, of course.
I thought you didn't like playing soprano roles.
Jeff, how could you say that? You know I have very few opportunities because of my extremely limited range. So if Julia Louis-Dreyfus can play a soprano, then I can play a soprano.
Hey, little girl, pick a hand. Whatever, I don't care. Now that's for later, or now, I don't care, I'm not your dad.
What are you doing? You're rewarding her bad behavior? You are a terrible parent. Now, Emily, I think you could play Eliza Doolittle.
What a great feeling. I'm so good with children. I guess I want a child now. A child. Why is everyone a shitty parent? I am judging you all. Oh, how I want a child. I think.
Father, it is I, your little boy, Pinocchio.
What? Oh, my son. You're my son, I guess. You've come to life magically. You're everything I've always wanted, as I was just telling the audience or whoever. I love you. Goldmark and son. Goldmark and son.
Ow, Tony. That hurts my ear.
Wow, I guess being a dad is harder than I thought. Whatever, I don't like you anymore.
Tony, what's the matter with you? Usually you are trying way too hard, but this ambivalence, this is unsettling.
Well, Emily, what does an internet reviewer do when he watches the worst made-for-TV musical ever? He prepares for that review with as much enthusiasm as Drew Carey managed to muster for Disney's Geppetto!
Oh, but Tony, we haven't even done the review yet.
No! Stealing focus!
Greetings, Broadway babies. I'm Emily.
And I'm Gerald.
And welcome to our Stealing Focus ABC Musical Madness Retrospective. This is the miniseries that analyzes the ABC TV movie musicals of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Each episode features our thoughts,
Like what works and what doesn't.
as we go into the history of the musical and how it fares as a movie.
And each episode features some very special guests. Joining us today is our friend, Tony Goldmark of Some Jerk with a Camera. Yay!
Tony, do you want to introduce our next episode?
If I must, Gerald, if I must. Today, we look at the only kinda sorta original musical written for the wonderful world of Disney, Geppetto.
Ordinarily, this is the point in the review where we'd go into the history of the original Broadway production. But like Tony said, there is no stage production Geppetto is based on.
While there have been multiple adaptations of the 19th century Italian children's book, The Adventures of Pinocchio, Geppetto is clearly based on the classic 1940 Disney film version.
90s live-action reboots of The Jungle Book and 101 Dalmatians aside, Geppetto is one of the first Disney remakes. Before Maleficent, before Christopher Robin, and before the inevitable Thumper, Sir Hiss, and Gurgi movies, Geppetto was the original Disney reimagining that dared to ask the bold cinematic question, but what if other character was title?
Geppetto was originally conceived as a project for Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews, giving Disney the potential of a full-on Mary Poppins reunion, while Tony, Grammy, and Academy Award winner Stephen Schwartz was brought on to write an entirely new score.
Pretty sure he just did this to complete his EGOT. Ah, Stephen Schwartz, the man who never wrote a heavy-handed lyric he didn't like.
They're different from us, which means they can't be trusted.
Because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
Who is the monster and who is the man?
Okay, but in all honesty, Stephen Schwartz was a huge get, and we all love him. Schwartz is responsible for composing the scores to Wicked, Pippin, Godspell, and a ton of Disney animated films. With the wheels in motion, Schwartz began writing songs with Van Dyke and Andrews in mind.
But unfortunately, Julie Andrews had to drop out due to throat problems, so a Dick Van Dyke Show reunion was pitched next with Mary Tyler Moore stepping in. But they couldn't get her either, and by then Dick Van Dyke had kinda lost interest.
And the choice after Dick Van Dyke was obvious. Not Jason Alexander, who was in Cinderella and Bye Bye Birdie. Not Victor Garber, who was in Cinderella and Annie. Not even creepy-ass Alan Cumming. All of whom have extensive musical theater credits and television appeal.
Nope, they went with Drew Carey and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And hell, while we're at it, let's just make Drew Carey the executive producer. What could possibly go wrong? Back in the year 2000, Drew Carey was just about the biggest star ABC had, starring in two of their biggest primetime shows, The Drew Carey Show and Whose Line Is It Anyway? So even though it seems weird now, attaching their biggest cash cow to one of their family-friendly TV projects made at least as much sense as putting him in Superstar Limo.
How about a map to your house, Drew Carey?
And if you think Drew Carey is weird, the production team only gets weirder from there. The director is a man named Tom Moore, who has really only done a lot of TV episodes. And the book was written by David I. Stern, the man responsible for Mozart in the Jungle and Open Season 2.
But then Jerry Mitchell was brought on as choreographer only a few years before he'd bring to life the dances in shows like Hairspray, Legally Blonde, Kinky Boots, and yes, Love Never Dies. Jerry Mitchell and Stephen Schwartz, David I. Stern, and Tom Moore.
There are plenty of performers in the cast with Broadway credits who get to really show off, like Brent Spiner and Usher, but other major musical theater talents like Anna Gasteyer and Wayne Brady are relegated to one scene each. It's such a waste, and the most random casting for a musical I can remember since Cats.
So, Geppetto premiered on ABC's Wonderful World of Disney on May 7th, 2000, a mere 6 months after the critically acclaimed Annie premiered. Would Geppetto continue that hot streak for Disney?
No.
Not at all.
No, not even a little.
No
way.
Geppetto flopped, and flopped hard. It tanked in the ratings, it is not fondly remembered like Cinderella or Annie, and Drew Carey was mocked for his involvement for years, especially on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
The good news and the bad news.
Merry Christmas, Tommy! Look, it's Geppetto on DVD.
And really, who was this movie for exactly? Why would the kids in the target audience give a shit about Pinocchio's dad? The whole concept reeks of self-indulgent baby boomers raised on Disney movies who are parents now and really still want to be the center of attention. The same impulse as all those goddamn 90s comedies where a busy dad learns to devote every waking moment to his damn wiener kids. Right off the bat, we're greeted with some ugly CGI and some insipid narration.
That's me, Pinocchio's dad. Aren't there things you ever wondered about me?
No.
Nobody cares.
No one cares about Geppetto. No one.
Geppetto lives in the town of Villaggio.
Isn't that a sex act?
Villaggio. It's Italian for village. Their village is named Village. Ugh, lazy. Anyway, we transition to the Universal backlot and are greeted to our opening number, Toys. It's perfectly catchy and high energy, but it does remind me of other Stephen Schwartz tunes like All for the Best from Godspell.
As the children marvel at the wonders of the toy shop, we meet our title character, Geppetto.
And there it is. We're less than 3 minutes in, and from that one line, you can already tell that no one is going to give a shit. Least of all, the star/executive producer. Why did we do this?
We hate ourselves.
I hate you too. Drew Carey is bad in this film, make no mistake about it. He can't sing, he can't act, and what's worse, he's not even trying. He just doesn't care.
Also, his wig makes him look like John Denver.
Geppetto's bridge on Toys features some nice lyrics from Stephen Schwartz, by the way, referring to the children of people who shouldn't have children. But this is undercut by the fact that Carey is showing us nothing in his actual demeanor that exudes his yearning for a child.
Even in his big I Want song, Empty Heart, all we get is him putting on his pajamas and staring blankly out the window. The lyrics simply don't connect to his crappy performance. You know, fun fact, the voice actor who played Geppetto in the 1940 animated film was a Nazi sympathizer. And I still prefer him!
I just don't know why they didn't get Jason Alexander for this role. It's exactly his type. And if not a Mary Poppins or Dick Van Dyke show, they could have at least had a mini Seinfeld reunion.
And that brings us to the first appearance of the Blue Fairy, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
What?
I can't.
You know what? I'm done. I'm through with this.
You're gonna hear us use the word lazy a lot during this review, but to me, this is the moment that encapsulates Disney's Geppetto for me. Like, what? Is the house shaking? Is someone bringing my unholy creation to life? Huh? Whatever. What?
So after some fairy sparkles, not nearly as impressive as swirls, and a quick underscoring of when you wish upon a star, we own the rights, why not? The little wooden boy himself comes to life, and...
I'm not a puppet, I'm Pinocchio.
Okay, well, you know what? At least he isn't Roberto Benigni.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, granted.
Get it out.
I loathe the design of Pinocchio. The makeup is awful. He just looks like a veiny zombie. Would it have killed them to make those wood lines a little darker?
Yeah, the director really ought to be ashamed. Pinocchio is a living marionette, and yet he never once moves like one. He runs around the whole movie acting like a kid in horrible makeup. Little touches like some mechanical movements, odd head tilt, something distinctly inhuman would help make his journey to real boyhood actually mean something.
Anyway, after that living nightmare, the Blue Fairy goes on to tell Pinocchio that if he proves himself brave, true, and unselfish...
and sponge-worthy...
he'll become a real boy!
Thankfully, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is extremely charming as the Blue Fairy. She's definitely the antithesis of whatever the hell Drew Carey is doing. This was her first live-action role in anything after Seinfeld ended. So she's making bold choices and even doing a freaking Julie Andrews impression. She's not taking it seriously, but she is having fun, unlike Mr. Who's Line over there.
What?
Geppetto is overjoyed. I think. Again, it's hard to tell. The script tells us he's happy. And we get another clever Schwartz tune called Geppetto and Son, which is practically Sondheimian with some of its lyrics.
See the words on the sign in that window. Those are words I have envied for years. But today I'm no longer chagrined over them.
Oh, Schwartzy, you were way too good for this.
But apparently, being saddled with a sentient piece of wood isn't as easy as Geppetto thought. And he starts becoming very overwhelmed with Pinocchio. Almost like being a parent is hard and takes Work!
Rather than making a connection with his son or maybe catch his new little puppet child up on all he's missed in the first 8 years of life, Geppetto just says, screw it. He's the public school system's problem now. So on the way, they run into the failed puppeteer and the first character in this movie to attempt an Italian accent, Stromboli, played by Brent Spiner.
After Stromboli bad touches Pinocchio, he goes to school and poor Geppetto can finally get some rest. But his vacation from parenthood doesn't last long, as Geppetto has to rush back to the school to flirt with Anna Gasteyer and break up a fight between Pinocchio and baby Anton Yelchin? Oh. Was not properly bracing myself for that movie. Ouch.
I would like to reiterate that Anna Gasteyer has played Elphaba, and yet here she is given nothing to sing, and only one scene where she flirts with Geppetto. Ugh, what a waste of your Anna Gasteyer. Also, this begs the question, if Geppetto can get horny school marms interested, why did he even need a magic puppet son to begin with?
Back at home, Geppetto screams at Pinocchio in such a convincing way that it really makes you think Geppetto might be the villain. Drew Carey acts like he hates this child.
Rather than do the sensible thing and, be a parent, Geppetto runs off to seek help from the Blue Fairy in her hideous Party City costume. Gah! Selena Meyer wanted to be president so badly she turned herself orange!
The green fairy makes mistakes. The orange fairy makes many, many mistakes.
You are the orange fairy!
You look pretty, though. Anyway, they sing a cute song called Just Because It's Magic, and considering the Blue Fairy is basically Glinda from Wicked, you're convinced they're gonna transition to popular at any minute. Time for a makeover, Geppetto! This is probably a good moment to mention that Drew Carey's narration is sprinkled throughout the film, telling us more and more about how he's feeling. You know, 'cause his emotions aren't capable of showing us.
And upon returning home, Geppetto finds that Pinocchio has run off with Stromboli. The son he wished and prayed for has run away. His reaction?
Well, maybe it's for the best.
My son's gone. Whatever. Cleveland rocks. How about a map to your house, Drew Carey? So you can go home and they can cast an actor in this.
Back at Stromboli's, Pinocchio sings some I Got No Strings 'cause lazy. Then he proceeds to watch Brent Spiner lose his freaking mind and abuse puppets. Abuse puppets? Oh no, too scary.
Oh, Gerald, would you just take a look? I promise you it's not scary. It's silly. He sings a song called Bravo, Stromboli, which is operatic in nature and obviously influenced by the likes of Gilbert and Sullivan, Rossini, and Mozart. Spiner falls back on his extensive musical theater background and even hits a nice G at the end. Okay, bravo.
We all know that Brent Spiner is most well known for playing Data on Star Trek, where he mostly had to act restrained and robotic for 7 seasons and 4 movies, and it's honestly kind of fun to watch him play against type here, as he goes nuts, hams it up, yells at his puppets, and nom-noms the scenery. He overdoes it, sure, but it's still better than watching Drew Carey sleepwalk his way through this shit.
Pinocchio manages to escape to Pleasure Island, meaning Geppetto has lost his son, and Stromboli has lost his meal ticket. And the next big chunk of the film can be best described as plot cul-de-sacs and shenanigans.
Drew Carey stumbles into a Renaissance fair in Griffith Park where he finds Wayne Brady, who, again, despite being known as the funny guy who sings, gets one reprise of toys and nothing else.
Next up, Geppetto wanders into a town called Idilia, where everything is perfect. That's the exact same goddamn set as Bellagio! Lazy! So we hear When You Wish Upon a Star again, 'cause reference, and then we stumble into a eugenics subplot! Like you do.
Yeah, we meet a mad inventor named Professor Buon Ragazzo and his fabulous son. Okay, seriously, this kid is great. He's like the best thing after Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And they churn out little well-behaved Aryan children out of this big Willy Wonka machine in the song Satisfaction Guaranteed.
The problem with the eugenics sequence is it's clearly meant to be creepy, and it is, but it's not shot in a creepy way. It has the same overlit, bright colors and peppy choreography as all the happy sequences, with no sense of underlying dread and no actual downsides presented.
There's honestly no reason for Geppetto not to be won over by this sales pitch, given his character up to now. He finds it creepy just 'cause. You could easily imagine idiots watching this and genuinely wondering what the hell would be so bad about it.
Hello, Mother. Hello, Father. It's a pleasure to meet you both.
See, this is what happens when you let Disney acquire Westworld.
Daddy! Can I be your little sonny? Hug your leg and call ya Pop.
Mussolini hired this guy to manufacture the Hitler Youth because the YouTube algorithm wasn't churning them out fast enough.
So, does the Italy Pavilion have like a ride or something like that?
We finally made it to Pleasure Island. And hey, guess what? We're actually introduced to someone entertaining. Usher, 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 Usher.
Like Emily said, Usher is obviously a terrific singer and dancer, so his appearance is a breath of fresh air. But is it just me, or does it seem like he was only available for one day of shooting? They keep cutting away during his big song as if they couldn't get a better second take. I mean, this is peak year 2000 Usher here. He couldn't have been easy to get. But I guess it could have been worse. I mean, he is a charismatic R&B virtuoso playing a diabolical villain luring children to their horrific enslavement, so thank Christ they didn't cast R. Kelly.
Oh. Anyway, Pinocchio blows off Geppetto, but considering how awful Drew Carey has treated this kid, it really comes off as an allegory for overcoming an abusive parent. So yeah, the kids are all jackasses, so they turn into jackasses, including our buddy Pinocchio. Hey, remember how brain-meltingly terrifying the donkey transformation was in the original Disney film?
Pinocchio?
Daddy!
Pinocchio?
A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
And no one can talk to a horse, of course, that is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Pinocchio. I don't know.
After the lazy, cheapest sequence ever put to film, Geppetto and Pinocchio reunite inside the belly of the whale. And how did Pinocchio transform back into a puppet?
When I jumped in the water, the donkey part washed away.
You know what? I'm done. This is some lazy. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea in the first place. This is just bullshit.
So is this my show now?
Hey.
Do I own you?
No, but I'm the person. Well, a puppet. Father and son reconcile, and then, something happens, and, well, they figure out an escape plan, but I'm not sure I'm old enough to watch this.
You are, Dad! And the smartest, and the richest, and the...
Okay, hold on, Pinocchio!
Pinocchio fucking deep throats the whale with his nose from the inside!
They tickle the whale's uvula, which gets him to... spit them out through the blowhole. You guys, I can't. I literally and figuratively cannot.
What?
And even though the story should be over, they return home to find freaking Stromboli there lying in wait for Pinocchio.
Lazy-ass Geppetto apparently can't keep up with his Flash-like pace, so he calls for the Blue Fairy and sings a token Disney pop song. The Blue Fairy is unconvinced and won't help until Geppetto sings half a verse and then she's like, sure, why not, fuck Stromboli.
Now Pinocchio is a real boy! Whee! Yeah, apparently old Pinocchio had no lessons to learn, no conscience to gain. All he needed was for his dad to be nicer.
Right? This claims to be Geppetto's story, but he doesn't even really do all that much. He gets angry at Pinocchio, then spends the rest of the movie looking for him and reacting to a bunch of random bullshit, And then at the end, they have him earn Pinocchio's real boyhood for him, just to justify centering the movie around Geppetto's dumb ass.
The hell of it is, if you squint really hard, you can kinda see the metaphor they were going for. In the first act, Geppetto only sees Pinocchio as an extension of himself.
For I'm not just Geppetto, I'm Geppetto and Son.
And only once he learns to see Pinocchio as a real person does Pinocchio become a real person. But they even screw that up! Because after he gets his Willy Wonka, you get everything you want because you were willing to give it up ending, the shop still gets its name changed to Geppetto and Son, which means he didn't actually learn anything! Since I gave my life away. Oh, and by the way, some guy in another town has a child-making machine, and I'm pretty sure he's building a world-conquering army. Does anyone care? Me neither. All hail our perfect children overlords.
I've said it so many times on this show, but there's a general rule when it comes to the book of a musical. When the book is good, you don't notice it. But when the book is bad, it is the first thing you notice. I know we gave Drew Carey a lot of shit, but in all honesty, he didn't have much to work with. The script is awful, rushed, and lazy. I don't know how any actor, regardless of skill, could have made any of it sound good or natural.
It's also incredibly disappointing. After 3 movies which featured heavily diverse casts and the first black Disney princess, to go back to just a bunch of white people. The only people of color in this film playing named characters are both in only one scene each. And even in the ensemble, there is little diversity to speak of.
Has there literally ever been a decent live-action Pinocchio? Between the Roberto Benigni movie, the Jonathan Taylor Thomas movie, and fucking this, it seems like an impossible task. Until very recently, Disney was developing another live-action version with a script from Chris Weitz, Paddington's Paul King attached to direct, and Tom Hanks in negotiations to play Geppetto. But then Disney completely scrapped that idea, and now they're starting from scratch and trying to get Robert Zemeckis interested. Cause that'll make this project more palatable. Creepy-ass Polar Express mocap. Welcome to Marwin, motherfuckers!
Anyway, this movie is a valuable lesson in knowing your limits. Drew Carey took the role not because he had legitimate respect or even interest in musical theater, but because he wanted to branch out and do something other than comedy.
And he was cast not because he was right for the part, but because he was the biggest star on the network at the time. It's not like casting Jason Alexander or Dick Van Dyke in the role would have turned this into Shakespeare or anything, but this thing was always gonna live or die on the lead performance of the character in the fucking title. And Carey's apathetic sleepwalking just squeezes out all the life this might have ever had in it.
And it's a real shame because you get the impression that at some point in the development process, Stephen Schwartz had a real point he wanted to make about the nature of parenthood and the value of humility and imperfection. But at the end of the day, the hubris of casting Drew Carey dragged it all down. The musical remains wooden and never becomes a real boy.
But hey, if you're a performing arts teacher like me, there is a stage adaptation you can license from Music Theater International called Disney's My Son Pinocchio, Geppetto's Musical Tale. It's not going to Broadway anytime soon.
What?
So yeah, Geppetto sucks. It'll make you angry, it'll make you feel your urge to kill rising. But if you watch it with some friends and some booze, you might get through it.
I feel dirty after all that mediocrity. I don't think I can take another experience like that for ABC musical madness.
Don't worry, Gerald. Our next episode takes us out to sea, away from original TV musicals, to an adaptation of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Pulitzer Prize-winning classic.
Hello everyone out there in YouTube land, we have a Patreon now. So if you want to help us produce this kind of content and more, get on there and contribute.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that bell for notifications to get everything Stealing Focus.
Thanks so much for following us. We love you all.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I just put this here, and then I got a little this letter here, and I'll do that, and maybe one of these. There. Perfect.
Stealing focus.